Hello and welcome to Binge of the Week. I'm your host, Sonia, aka Binge of the Week. Today's episode is Reacher Feature, Season 1. I did think it might be confusing to use the word feature because I am talking about the show. Not that we won't mention the Jack Reacher feature films, but this is about Season 1 of Reacher, which is ultimate comfort TV for yours truly. And I think maybe for other people too. If you're the kind of person that can do comfort TV with a healthy dose of violence, but just violence. And we'll get into all that. This to me is kind of low art perfection, this season of television. And I'm only planning on covering Season 1. Usually for a show, I'd really commit to doing all the seasons and talking about the differences. But I wanted to do Season 1 only because I got so into this when this first came out. It was definitely one of those things that for me lived on my TV on a loop. I stayed in this world for a very long time. And I've been known to do that with a lot of things, but I really just have to like something a lot to sit in that universe on a loop for days, if not weeks. So this show really did strike a chord with me. There was something so comforting about it, and I think the later seasons, maybe not having that same grip on me, intrigued me even more as to why Season 1 does. And it's not to disparage Seasons 2 or 3, because I think they probably still work pretty well. Season 2 less, and Season 3 better. Soon, as I'm releasing this, Season 4 will come out, and I am excited about it. Because I am always a binge watcher, I will not be watching it until it ends in a couple of months. So maybe I'll feel that way about Season 4 and have to podcast Season 4 and just skip over 2 and 3. But only time will tell. So for now, Season 1, what makes it so special, right? Why this season? Why does it work so well? I do think it has such great elements. I think all of it works well. It's well produced, even down to the soundtrack. It has endless good needle drops. I think the main character being into music really drives a lot of that. And I'm not someone who knows blues music, but whenever he is talking about it and then it plays, or it plays because he likes it, I really enjoyed all the tracks. Like, I've definitely added them to my playlist. And I have no idea what that is in the books. I don't know if that is a character thing that comes from the books. I would guess it kind of is. It seems like the take that I understand from the internet folks is that this first season's very faithful to the books. I obviously can't speak to it, and as my listeners and return listeners know, I like to keep those canons separate anyway. And I'm glad it gave us so much good music. Of course, I think my favorite needle drop, it's a close call because I don't even know the song that plays when he walks through the turnstiles in the prison with those sunglasses, but it's so good. It matches the visual so well and enhances the scene so much that I love that song playing at that moment. But obviously my favorite has to be Wayward Son. I am totally with Finley. Like, Finley and I have very compatible music tastes, and I think if you're a Supernatural fan, you love that song. I definitely posted that clip on Threads and had the Supernatural fans materialize, as they should. That song should summon the Supernatural fans immediately. And it definitely was fun to see people react to it with a lot of Supernatural gifs. But that's just like a fun element. I think there's an interesting tone to this season of TV because it's got the mystery. It's in the South, small town. It feels like there's an element of danger, and it does feel like there's an investigation happening, and there is violence, but it is funny and it is fun. I think the music element makes it fun, and I think the characters make it fun. And I think that's what's really special about this season of TV, is that you've got this cast that was perfect. I think everyone was perfectly cast. And I say that without meaning insult to the people playing the villains because they are downright despicable. And I just want to say that they're probably really good actors and not despicable people, but man, I would almost be insulted to be cast as some of these people because they are downright awful. And that plays really well for the entertainment factor. And the good guys are just, on the other side of the spectrum, so likable. You've got the Finley, Roscoe, Reacher team up working way too well. And it's not just that the cast is good. It's really the chemistry between the characters. Obviously, the actors have chemistry, but it is such a perfect balance of a team up of characters. I think what grabbed people about this was the supporting cast working so well with this Lone Ranger, because the show to me is like a modern Western. It follows the biggest Western rule there is, as far as I was taught the Western rules, which is the cowboy rides in, rights are wrong, and then cannot be a part of the society which they have helped to fix. They must leave. They must ride on, ideally into a sunset, but they cannot be a part of this. And Reacher is never going to be a part of this. But what's interesting is that season 2 for me kind of falls flat for 2 reasons. It is too big. I think it went from this cozy town and like the small world that they perfected to this bigger world, a lot of locations, nowhere pinned down. There was no personality to the place. And you had Reacher in this team where like he was with his teammates, but it was almost like it wasn't earned the way this one was, where we're told Reacher works well with these people, and we see it in the flashbacks. Those help in season 2, but I don't think it has the same effect as a season 1, because in season 1, you meet Reacher with these people, and then their trust in each other is built on camera. The relationship is being built through the season. And even when they're at odds with each other, especially Finley and Reacher in the beginning, you're still getting so much good chemistry that even at odds, they're both playing towards being a good guy. And once they solidify as a team, it really does feel like you've earned all this cohesiveness and all this team bonding on camera with the audience. The audience likes Reacher, the audience likes Finley, the audience loves Roscoe. Roscoe's the best. And I think it's just like hard to meet that again. I think it's hard to catch that lightning in a bottle again. And it's a bummer because that is a feature of Reacher. Ugh, I did not mean to do that, but it is such a feature of this character to tell stories where he's wandering, he's the cowboy, he can't stick around, and the cast is going to have to change around him, except for Neely. And this is another great thing that happens in this show, is that as far as I understand from the little that I've heard online, she's not a fixture in the books the way she is in the show. And I think the showrunners recognized just how popular she was. And I'm only too happy to have them make that decision because I really enjoy her character. She comes in and is just like so cool. And that's all the analysis I'm going to do on Neely, because really it's that simple. She's cool. She's cooler than all of them. She's cooler than Reacher. She's got a lot of the elements Reacher has, which is to be really intelligent and a great investigator. But also she's got social skills that he doesn't have, and a way about her that's very cool. And obviously she struck a chord with a lot of people because she would not be getting her own spinoff otherwise. So by the time the show gets to its final episodes, you've got 4 characters you love and a bunch of other characters that you really, really despise. And the balance is working really well between all these characters. The chemistry is excellent between everybody. So really, when you have to kind of throw that all away for the next season, it's a big, big ask to replicate this kind of magic every season. I have every faith they'll try. And it's really specifically, I think, season 2 that has a harder time. I think season 3 got better, but I don't even remember it as much because clearly I never had the need the way I felt to keep rewatching seasons 2 and 3, which is unfortunate, but I still remember enjoying them enough. Obviously, at least we've still got Reacher and we've still got Neely, and really Reacher does need at least Alan to work, which I think, what great casting. He's got this kind of angelic, trustworthy face that can also be very menacing, and he's also gigantic, which really is kind of necessary to this character because so much is pinned to him being physically imposing. It really needs him to be that because he's so matter of fact, flat, doesn't get angered. And I do think that's something else that I noticed. I think he gets angrier in later seasons, and I might be wrong about that again because I haven't rewatched them obsessively, but I do feel like there was this just constant calm of this character really worked for me as comfort TV because all of the violence is always measured. It doesn't ever get more violent than he needs to be for the situation. He doesn't need to get violent at all sometimes because he's just that big. So it's just the threat of his size doing the actual work of people backing down, or it's an open-handed slap when the adversary is weaker than him, and he knows that, and he doesn't need to prove anything. And it's really interesting juxtaposing that with watching Jack Reacher movies starring Tom Cruise, who I think is an excellent actor. I think sometimes people have watched the Mission Impossible movies so much, which is funny because previously on this podcast, last episode, in fact, I did the entire Mission Impossible franchise, and then just wandered into Reacher, forgetting for a second that Tom Cruise did Jack Reacher. And I only rewatched the first movie when I was prepping this podcast. And Tom is excellent. He can play the character. I feel like in the show, he's being played a little bit on the spectrum, where Tom Cruise was playing him more as an action hero with some snark. And it was definitely reminiscent of a more snarky Ethan Hunt. And it's a different character, and not completely different. I think Tom Cruise still did a good job, again, because he's a good actor. People are so used to watching him in Mission Impossible, I think they forget what it was like to watch Tom do more out there stuff. And he can do that stuff. But I do think not having him be physically imposing just made it feel very different. And when this is specifically written, obviously in the books as well, to be this character and to be this size, I think it shapes a lot of how he deals with the world. I thought, what would it be like to be 6'5" and huge and very calm but threatening when I felt I needed to be, and tell somebody to stop doing something that was wrong? I don't feel at my current 5'4" frame that I could, just get in front of somebody and be like, stop mistreating your dog on their property alone and be safe while I do that. But Reacher feels that way. So it was interesting to think about it in that sense, and in the sense of the comparison to a Tom Cruise Jack Reacher, which is like, what does it do to you, the way you react to the world, if you have this crazy, intense sense of justice and are this size and this menacing that you can actually go around and tell people they shouldn't do things? So I do think it affects the telling of the tale for Alan to match the look of this character. And he does carry it well through all 3 seasons. He got much, much bigger in later seasons as far as like bodybuilding bigger. But in season 1, you know who he is right away. It's such a great character intro. I love a good character intro. And this is one of those. He walks his way into town, stares down this guy who's abusing his girlfriend, doesn't have to raise his hands, stops him from the abuse just with the face and the staring and being 6'5", and then tries to have his pie and calmly gets arrested. And you just know so much already from this intro of how contained he is. He's not gonna like put up a fight, even though he could, but there's no reason to make the situation worse. And it does tell this ethos of this character so well of I know I can be the force of justice when I want to be, but I don't really want to be involved, and I don't want a fuss, and I don't want anything happening in my life that makes it more complicated, because what he's after is just going around doing his little seeing America thing and being left alone, which obviously never works out for him. But it is just all this violence that he's doling out in this very just cause, which is why it works as comfort TV, because none of the violence ever feels like it's out of proportion. And what's interesting about it is that it gets so violent at the end. The violence escalates pretty slowly in this show. And they have a big fight in the prison and then a lesser fight. It really does come in waves. It ebbs and flows through the episodes a bit, but as you get to the last two episodes, the kills get so much more violent. Reacher is really working his way up the boss level of villain that he's fighting, to the point where the final kill is just like, I'm gonna set this guy on fire. Like, it's just like the most brutal way to kill somebody is to just toss him into a fire. And it feels kind of just because they've written this character, this villain, to be just so out of pocket. And, Reacher's avenging his brother's death, so what can you do? But really, the show does depend on all of this chemistry, even this chemistry. I think the villain, the KJ versus Jack Reacher energy works so well, which is why I come back every time to this lightning in a bottle. Everyone just has such good chemistry in this. My favorite, I do think, is Finley and Reacher, because I love Roscoe and Reacher, but I'm not as interested in romantic storytelling as I am in platonic love storytelling. And the bestie relationship between these two reluctant men who don't want to actually be friends and like grate the heck out of each other for the first, I don't know, half of the season, but still like seem to have almost immediate respect for each other, even though they seem angry about it. Neither of them really like hates the other at any point. I never believed that. And I really love enjoying their budding friendship throughout the whole season. And it leads to so much humor. I do think this is the thing that works the best out of the 3 seasons, is that season 1 is very funny. All the jokes about the food, which is important because Alan is a great on-screen eater. Eating on screen is so rare, and I always understand why. We all understand why. These people do like 30 takes. You can't eat that much of the food. Actors have famously made themselves sick trying to do it. Never recommended. No one thinks you should do it. But there is something amazing about watching somebody actually really wolf down food in a TV show or a movie. It was always like eye-catching when Brad Pitt used to do it. And it is eye-catching when Alan does it, because he can obviously, being as built as he is, probably house a lot of food. So it's probably why he can get away with it, but everyone has a limit, and I just hope for the man that he had a few takes every time he did this. But I do love the humor with Finley always wanting like a salad and all of these New England attributes they give him to make him a misfit in the South, of like wanting a salad and being in this tweed. And it's all very campy and simple, but I enjoy it. It's corny. It's supposed to be. That's why it works. And I think they lost a little bit of that in seasons 2 and 3, where it's not as funny, because the humor did really come a lot from this relationship and how much they don't fit together, but do actually like each other underneath it all. I do think seasons 2 and 3, where they falter, is something that it's hard to pin down every reason why it falters. It feels like bad studio notes to me, though. Like, if I had to do a gut check about what happened, is that like there's just, oh, we need to give Reacher a team, or let's find a way to get Neely really in on the whole season, which I love that kind of note. But I think whatever the reason, the notes probably overshadowed like the things that worked about season one that were so excellent. And you are beholden to the source material. You have these books. I don't know how many of them there are. I have heard someone say that the first season was based on the best book. Again, I have no idea, but then I would guess that you'd want to come out strong for a show. At the end of the day, I think they all work, but this season is so special. And as much as the later seasons feel like maybe they wanted like to sell this idea of the show and like more spy, more big, more this, more team, they pulled back on season 3 a bit. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't like a season 1, but maybe they'll get it back in season 4. Maybe we'll be back at this kind of perfect balance of a smaller scale, because bigger isn't always better. I do think that this show worked because it felt really contained in this setting that felt, I hate to say it because it's kind of annoying when people say this, but it felt like a character. The setting felt like its own thing. And this is the curse a little bit of having such a great, brilliant, amazing season 1, is that you made it perfect, and it's going to be hard to top that for future seasons. And it's okay, because I think if seasons 2 and 3 were just like another show, you would say that's a good show. But I think in comparison with the season 1 version of this, it's a little hard because you're like, oh, but that was magical. There was just something about it. Even the choreo, the fight choreo in this season is so interesting to me because it feels very real. And I don't mean real in like the gritty, grounded sort of way, because I do think what's important about what makes this season work so well is that it is cheesy and campy. But it's that the fighting's a little dirty. It's not like excellent form. You do the things you have to do to win the fight. Whether it's I'm going to count to 3 and only counting to 1 and then punching somebody in the face or hitting them where it hurts. Really, it's really dirty fighting, because like that's what you do. In a real fight, you wouldn't just be like, well, I shouldn't punch this person here because that's unfair. Or like, I should have this perfect technique in this style of martial arts. No, I like the fighting in this because it feels messy and dirty and like what you would do to claw your way to winning against your opponent. And I think there's less of that in the future seasons as well. So we'll see how this show progresses at season 4. But I did just want to have like a fun tune into how great this season is. No logic, even though, logic does make me want to ask at the end of this, how do you clean this up? He left a trail of bodies so long. I don't even know how you leave this town. Reacher just came in and like killed 20 dudes, and he's like, okay, I'm out. See you guys. But that's okay. It's not supposed to make sense. Someone tried to give me a logic thing about this show, and I was like, please don't do that. But it's not what this show is for. We are not here to do logic. We're here to get some revenge, retribution, and justice from one good guy, the cowboy who rides in, and his pals that he makes along the way. And then he's going to move on with no consequences for the fact that he murdered a bunch of dudes. Okay, this is just Western justice. And that's how it works. I look so forward to seeing season 4, and I look forward to seeing Neely's show because she's excellent and I want her to have her own universe. I think she's going to be even more fun. Usually I would be so against a spin-off for a character, except that I think she's actually fully formed enough as a character to have a real spin-off, especially in a world like this where it's not super intense character development. If anyone listened to my podcast on The Pit, you'll know that I'm kind of on the side of, I'm not sure that the Night Shift should have a spinoff because they are all very much written as side characters, and you'd have to make them very real in that world to work as a lead. Where this one, like, Neely has enough development in Reacher to carry a season of this show, because this show doesn't need to get into the things that drive her as much as The Pit does. So, if you made it this far, thanks for listening. I actually am torn about what I'm about to do for the next episodes. Part of me wants to do Psych. Psych is probably my all-time number 1 forever comfort show. It's a close call with happy endings, but Psych has been in my life obviously much longer because it came out many, many moons ago when I was young and have been rewatching it forever. It's just intense because it's 8 seasons. I think I would dedicate 4 podcast episodes to it. That would mean getting through 2 seasons a week. And that would take me straight into spooky season, which is like the biggest programming of this podcast because I have too much spooky season content to actually watch everything that I watch for spooky season for the podcast this year, which is good because like I would hope the podcast is still around next year and I can do more spooky season stuff next year without exhausting my entire library. All that said, it might be Psych. I might watch Psych, or I might just hold on to that because it is 4 weeks and watch Masters of the Universe instead for next episode and then figure it out. Either way, thanks for listening and stay cool.